Welcome to the CFB Dynasty podcast with hosts Matt Knowles, Brian McElfresh, and Doug Gravely.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there? It's time for another CFB Dynasty podcast. My name is Matt Knowles. As always, I'm here with the founder and the mastermind behind CFB Dynasty, Brian McElfresh. If you're in the North American continent, this week, you had fireworks being set off earlier in the week in Canada. Yesterday, you had all kinds of fireworks being set off in the United States. We know why that is. It's not because of independence. It's because they knew we were going to be joined by the one and the only Doug Gravely here on this podcast today. Doug, how are you doing? Where have you been? We are glad to have you back.
Yo, I'm doing good, man. Good to be back chatting with you guys. As the two of you know, some of our, most of our audience probably doesn't, but I started back at the sheriff's office. So, time I don't really have a lot. So, but yeah, man, it's good to be back. Hopefully I can join more frequently because I missed y'all's two wonderful looking faces a little bit.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have a great show for you guys today after last week's marathon of the 12-team, 12-round fantasy mock. Today, we're going to be talking about stacks. We're going to be talking about your favorite quarterback, wide receiver, or quarterback tight end stacks. Each one of us has prepared a list. It's going to be a fun little show, and it's the kind of thing that you want to look at when you're drafting. It's sometimes if you can get that stack, it's feast or famine. If you got a quarterback wide receiver combo that's putting up tons of yards, tons of touchdowns, and you can hit them on the right week, that might be the thing that's going to put you over the top. All right, so BMAC, how far are we out from college football starting?
Well, it starts next month, and
that's what I was looking for. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Next month. That means we're also drafting next month too.
That's right. Oh, I cannot wait for the draft. Oh, so close now, and they got the video game here in like 2 weeks. It's all coming together. It's all going to be great.
One of the other exciting things that's happened, we're going to get into it here in just a minute, is there were some great new features that were added to the CFB Dynasty website for subscribers, things that are going to really make people that are currently free users say, you know what, maybe I do need to go and jump in and get a subscription because the amount of information that's going to be up there on the site, really cool deployments that have happened. We're going to get into that here in just a second. But next week, we're going to be doing something fun. We might do it online on this show. We might do it offline. But next week is going to be something we do that's unique to our CFB Dynasty Home League, and that is going to be the drawing of divisions. We do a college and pro. We have 3 divisions of 4, and the divisions are picked completely by random. BMAC has a lottery bingo kind of wheel, and he puts the team names on there, and he goes through, and we just pick the divisions out that way, so that way everything is random. We do it every 3 years. That way, if you get into a crappy division or an easy division, that you're not stuck with that for the rest of eternity. But it makes it fun. You also there's a little bit of tension because if you see BMAC's name come up or either one of the Mike D's that are in our division and they're in our league and you get stuck in one of their divisions, you're screwed. But you know what? I mean, it kind of happens. Things happen. But
I was gifted the easiest college division possible almost.
So basically, here's the thing. If you're listening to this and you're in the home league and BMAC just said that, he basically just called the 3 of you guys out. Take offense to that and beat his butt this year.
You can take offense to that, or you can look at your record in the past, and we have that stored.
So one of the things we want to ask you guys, we just told you something that's unique. That is something that happens in the CFB Dynasty Home League. We want to feature leagues through our Discord, through Discord discussion that have got some unique features or dynamics. We want you to post in the Discord some of the cool things that you guys do. And from time to time, we're going to pick one of those. We may even spotlight your league. We might reach back out to get some more information and spotlight your league on this show. Doug, do you think that sounds like a good idea, or do you think that sounds crazy?
I like it, man.
There's so many
you want to roll with, bro.
There's so many different leagues. We did this years ago, And it was a fun series to do, just kind of learning about how different college fantasy football leagues can be set up, different scoring systems, different a couple different teams or sets of teams that have unique playoffs, and it's just cool. There's like promotion relegation leagues, all kinds of stuff like that are pretty dope and fun to feature.
I can tell you just last year being in our home league and then also doing the CFB Dynasty Open League, the rules were pretty much opposites in the way that the two leagues worked. And it was very interesting just in that respect, seeing the completely different dynamics about who the hot guys were in one league, who the guys you didn't want to touch were in another league, and vice versa. So it was neat. So yes, we definitely want to hear from you guys about what your league does and the things that make your league unique. So on that note, we want to talk about what makes CFB Dynasty, the website, unique. BMAC, this week, if you guys didn't see yesterday, BMAC dropped a cool little video announcing some of the features that have been dropped onto the CFB Dynasty website. BMAC, why don't you quickly go through and show people some of the things that have been added to the site?
All right, add it up to the screen for those of you listening on the podcast. You'll just have to go navigate over to Draft Prep, Draft Central, and under the standard rankings, our CFF rankings, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends. We also have kickers and defenses, but they don't get this feature. So we have all the stat projections there. If you're not aware, the basis for our rankings is depth charts, which are public. You can access those also under Draft Prep. And so those are up to date. And, we'll be making adjustments as injuries happen in the fall and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Those are up to date. And those are tied to 3 years or kind of what puts the projections up are, all the individual stats that you would think. It's not just a random projection that we have out there. It's a number that's based on 3 years of a quarterback one for X coach. So let's just say Kirby Smart's quarterback one, the last 3 years. What's the average over those 3 years of his yards, interceptions, passing touchdowns, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, everything that is statted in college fantasy football for the most part takes 3 years of averages of those, and then it puts out these rankings based on their projection. And then on our side, Matt or myself or Doug can go in there and tweak those, by a percentage. So we might be able to tweak, a quarterback's rushing data up or down. If you go from Jalen Milroe to a Ty Simpson next year, then you're looking at obviously a totally different archetype of a quarterback. So we might adjust passing up and rushing way down in that kind of a scenario. But yeah, we go in there based on everything that we're seeing, hearing, reading, and make those adjustments manually. So then we've got these here live where you can see them now. That I took decimals away. Normally you would see, okay, Byron Brown is projected 27.48 passing touchdowns or whatever. I took those away just because there's so much data here. It's already so wide. On the screen that I'm sharing, it's a really wide, massive monitor that most people probably don't have. So if you're looking at it on a standard laptop, you might not even be able to see all of the playoffs or the fantasy playoffs there listed. So for every player, you'll get their point projection, their team, their conference. Team and conference are there specifically so that you can manipulate these rankings to be adjusted to match whatever the player pool is in your league. So if you're a SEC Big Ten only league, you can easily filter down there with an export and a filter. I've got some videos out there on how to do that. We've got bye weeks in there. We've got the fantasy playoffs for every team. And now we've added, for quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends, each individual category statted there. And, obviously you can export these, and if you're these are based for wide receivers and running backs in terms of receptions. These are based on half point PPR, so you can go in and change it to 1 point PPR or make adjustments to them on your own. I was emailing back and forth with a couple of people who are like, yeah, we have our formulas and we want to go in and make some adjustments, but we need the base data. Well, boom, the base data is now there.
Well, I think it's some great things that have added in. We talked about a couple other things that may end up getting added to tweak this even more to make it that much more usable. B-Mac, did you show them the difference between the way it looks on the desktop compared to mobile?
I did not. So on desktop, you'll see it as one big spreadsheet, basically. And then on mobile, I'll switch to a mobile view. You'll see that it has the little plus signs by each player. So if you click on the plus sign here, it'll give you all that exact same column data. It's just, nicer and neater on a mobile device. So you can see all that stuff there through the plus sign.
And the reason we wanted to show you the difference between mobile versus desktop is because with the stats being displayed so much differently between the two, we didn't want you to feel like you were missing something if you were on one device and we showed it to you a different way.
It's a good question. Thank you. All
right. So with that being said, let's get right down to it. We want to talk about stacks. We want to talk about, if you're a pro fantasy player, you always wanted to have the Peyton Mannings to the Marvin Harrisons. If you got stuff like that,
good one.
You were going to be, you knew that if you had that stack back in the day, that you were going to be putting up points every single week. College is a little different. College is basically a year-to-year thing because of how quickly people move through, and whether it's going to the pros, whether it's transfer portal, no matter what it is. So finding good stacks could be the difference between you finishing in the bottom of your division with BMAC or you being able to overtake him and beat him and finish in the top of that division. So each one of us has put together our top three, and doesn't mean that it's in ranking. It's just three that we have our eyes on. And we're going to just take some turns going through those and tell you why we have picked those out. So Doug, are you okay with me starting with you?
I'm ready to roll, buddy.
All right, man. So we're going to go to Doug first. Doug, give us one of your top stacks that you've got your eyes on and tell us why.
All right. So my top stack is Byron Brown to Sean Atkins at USF. Byron Brown is our number one projected quarterback as in terms of fantasy, which, that flip-flops between him and Gabriel. And, I think there's one or two other that kind of sneak their way into one, and depending on where you're looking, but he's our number one quarterback. And then Atkins is our number 10 receiver. So two guys in the top 10, you would think they would definitely produce points. I mean, last year alone, Atkins had over 1,000 yards, did really good. And then this year we've got him projected 96 receptions, 1,100 yards, and 10 touchdowns. I mean, for a number one receiver, those are pretty good numbers in my opinion. And Byron Brown's just going to do his thing like he did last year, I believe. And we all know he's a capable runner as well as a passer. And Atkins is his favorite target, and he's just coming back. So I don't see that changing.
All right, good stuff. So BMAC, give us one of yours. Who is somebody you've got your eyes on?
All right, so this one is pretty obvious. I think this will be the number one stack in college fantasy football this year. We've got Dylan Gabriel, who's currently our number 2 quarterback, to Evan Stewart, who is he's a top 3 Devy wide receiver, meaning he's got massive NFL potential. The biggest hurdle to this is the talent at wide receiver 2, Tez Johnson out there. So, I mean, Tez was incredible last year, and he's going to be incredible again this year. I just think Oregon's going to put up so many points and so many through the air. Gabriel to Stewart, Gabriel to Tez, they're both going to be valuable and fun stacks to have. It's going to be interesting to see on FanDuel and DraftKings which one they value more, Stewart or Tez Johnson, early in the season. But I'm gonna love if they have Stewart kind of cheaply valued there, because it's going to be Gabriel to Stewart all day for me. Just his talent is so incredible. I think they're going to be the number one stack in college fantasy this year.
So you bring up FanDuel. I'm going to ask you a quick question about that. So if you had a situation where you had good value, would you consider picking all three of them in your FanDuel setup?
Oh man. Yeah, it just depends on the team. And it depends on who you're going against too. So if you're in one of those, like, I'm trying to win $1 million and I'm one of 2 million people that are in this pool, you have to have the perfect lineup. And you're very unlikely to get that, with 2 wide receivers from the same team. So unless they're putting up 65 points or whatever, which will probably happen a couple times this year for Oregon. I don't know if 65 necessarily is in the cards unless they're going against somebody small, but 50 is certainly on the table for them. But man, I would say it just depends on what kind of pool that you're in. If you're in a head-to-head, or if you're in just whatever, a smaller 50-50 pool, I would definitely roll with that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring them up, because we're putting this list together. Tez Johnson was somebody that I actually had considered putting on the list, where you put Stewart in there. So it just goes to show, who knows what's going to be happening with that Oregon offense.
Yeah.
So the first one that I put up here is you got to go Western Kentucky, looking at TJ Finley and Dalvin Smith, our number 4 ranked quarterback, plus our number 26 ranked wide receiver. Couple reasons why that have nothing to do with those players, more so with the system. When you're talking about the quarterback at Western Kentucky and the number 1 receiver at Western Kentucky, if you can have either one of those guys, they are probably going to be putting you up stats. If you look back at the last 3 years of the number 1s at Western Kentucky in those 2 positions, they have put up ridiculous numbers. Dalvin Smith is an interesting case study. He is the opposite of Oronde Gadsden, where Oronde Gadsden was a wide receiver that went to tight end and became one of the top ranked tight ends in the country. Dalvin Smith is a guy that, if he was a tight end only ranking, he's gone back and forth between what his rankings was going to be. If he was a tight end only, he would probably be in our top 3 tight ends this year. Because he's now put down as a wide receiver, his value drops just a little bit. The fact of the matter, though, is that he is still the number 1 currently at Western Kentucky. And if you can get that number 1, no matter what true position he is, you want to have that guy on your roster.
100%, man. I like that one a lot. He's one that can easily outperform his ADP or certainly where we have him ranked, just because of the power in that offense. That's a really good one.
All right, so Doug, give us another one. Who do you got also on your stack list?
All right, so next one for me is going to be Seth Hennigan to Rock Taylor in Memphis. So Hennigan we got as the number 8 quarterback, and Rock we've got as the number 12 receiver. Just some fun little stats about Memphis. They were the top scoring offense in the AAC last year, averaging almost 40 points a game, 306 passing yards. So you got to figure that those passing yards are going to go to somebody, and I like Rock Taylor to be that somebody. Obviously not all 309 passing yards are going to go to Rock every game, but and then another fun tidbit of information about Memphis, if you guys believe it or not, that I found this morning, is they're the only group of 5 team in the upcoming video game that has an 85 overall offense. So could be pretty fun on the video game as well if you want to play with these 2 guys. But I just like Seth Hennigan a lot. He seems like he's been around since I started watching college football. But he's just always there. And I think he's a great quarterback, and Rock Taylor is going to be a great receiver. So.
All right, good stuff. All right, BMAC, we're going to roll it back over to you. Give us another pair that's on your list.
All right, so Haynes King to Eric Singleton. So King, this is the number 10 quarterback in our rankings to the number 59 receiver. Singleton came on as a freshman and looked really good. He didn't, put up a massive CFF season or anything like that, but really good in terms of his freshman year. So expect to see a bit of a jump there from Singleton and King. He's just one of the stories of the portal that you love to see, where he just really needed a fresh start, not to mention all the, I don't know, you call it toxic or whatever was going on at Texas A&M under Jimbo. Haynes King sadly was caught up in all of that stuff. So he had an outbreak year. He had 27 touchdowns, 2,800 yards, but also he's a good threat on the ground. You see him like 12 carries, 10, 11, 11, 7. That's how he ended the year in terms of carries per game, and had a rushing touchdown in each of those games. So you love Haynes King. He's a top 10 college fantasy quarterback this year. And then if Singleton can develop and grow on what he did as a freshman, he can be a really intriguing target for CFF. He's not going to finish, top 10 or anything like that. And their schedule at Georgia Tech is pretty tough ending the year. You're not going to want to start them like late in the year. So like this is a stack that you want to kind of ride early in the season, because then it gets problematic. So you go, this is how they end: at North Carolina, Notre Dame, at Virginia Tech, Miami, NC State, at Georgia. That's going to be tough. Early in the year though, you love it, where it's okay. They open the season. That's one of the week 0 teams. They play Florida State week 0. 12 o'clock ESPN, August 24th. So we're really close to that one. And then Georgia State at Syracuse, VMI at Louisville. And Louisville's a good team too. That's not going to be a cakewalk by any means. And then Duke, which that should be a great game for you to start that stack. So I like them this year. Certainly going to be tough for end of the year, but a great stack nonetheless to follow.
All right, so my next pair, I'm going to go to our team that right now, this year to me is going to be the group of 5 darlings, at least to start. Every year there's a school that jumps out, whether it's a Kent State or South Alabama or UTSA that has some players, normally more than 2, that are just jumping out, putting up a ton of stats. I'm going with Jordan McLeod and Joey Hobart, a.k.a. Joe Dirt at Texas State. Currently our number 13 ranked QB, our number 17 ranked wide receiver. So I want you to think about that real quick. Texas State has got a wide receiver in the top 20 at quarterback and wide receiver, and they've got Ishmael Mahdi, who's a top ranked running back. So that is a ton of talent that is at Texas State this year. So Joey Hobart, we have him projected to be a 1,000-yard receiver this year, which is going to be over what he did last year. Last year, he was down a little bit as far as his receptions and yards. In 2022, he had 89 receptions, 1,249 yards, and 16 touchdowns. The dude was blowing up where he was at previously. Last year, he was down to a paltry 76 receptions, 895 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So when you put...
That's going to be... Yeah, sorry, man. I didn't mean to interrupt there.
It's all good.
I thought you were ending there.
No, when you put a quote, yeah.
Clear quarterback upgrade for them. And I love the potential for him. He's not an exciting pick. He's like a total slot style wide receiver, but he's going to get volume. Well,
listening to their podcast, that's where he has the name Joe Dirt from. He runs a bunch of the ugly routes underneath. He's not a fancy guy. He's the opposite of some of the guys that we get onto our list. He's just the guy that does the dirty work and finds a way to get a lot of stats from that. So I'm going to be definitely interested to see all in on the McLeod, Mahdi, Joe Dirt combination down there at Texas State. All right, so Doug, going back to you for your final pairing in this segment. Who you got?
All right, so I'm going to roll with Garrett Nussmeier to Kyron Lacey.
Mm-hmm.
Not real high in our quarterback or receiver rankings. I mean, as compared to most on the list, quarterback number 47 for us and wide receiver number 39. So not real high on the quarterback side of the rankings, but when you look at what he did in the bowl game against Wisconsin, where he threw for almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, I think LSU's offense is still going to be good. I mean, we're not talking about defenses here. The defense still might be a little rough, but they're still going to be able to put up points. And a guy like Kyron Lacey, who, in my opinion, wasn't really used to his full potential. He's 6'2", 215 pounds. He's solid. He gets some touchdowns. He had 7 touchdowns last year, but I can see, this receiver quarterback combination being really exciting for, not just fantasy purposes, but for LSU fans. Their offense might not miss too much. I mean, they're going to miss the dual threat running ability, but as far as scoring points, they're still going to score some points. So I like these two as far as a stack a lot.
All right, good stuff there. B-Mac, who's the final pairing that you want us to take a look at on this show?
All right, so one of the guys that I love, so I'll throw up some highlights of him while we talk about him for a sec. Why not? Zachariah Branch, just the talent and the speed from this guy. You saw him a ton on kick returns, and week 1 he broke out with I think it was a house kick return, or at least a close one. He had a big eye-opening play. Like, he's a different speed, and in that offense at USC, what he can be with a pocket passer and Miller Moss is absolutely incredible. It's going to be interesting to see. You kind of expected USC to add more talent at receiver, but it just didn't really happen as much. I think Branch is going to be the clear number 1 if he takes the next step with that speed and that offense. I'm just telling you, he can really surprise people. I wasted money on him a lot last year in DraftKings because I was waiting for that to happen last year. But I feel like he's the clear number 1. And if his talent is realized in that offense, he should get 12 plus touches a game. I sure as heck know in the video game, if I run with USC ever, he'll be getting 12 plus touches a game.
Good stuff. So we're going to go to my final one on here. And I had a tough one. I had a tough time with this one. I'm going to talk about it, but then I'm going to pose the question to you guys about why I had the conundrum here at my last wide receiver. So I'm going to go to a guy you've heard me talk about a lot, which is Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur has a massive upgrade at the wide receiver position this year, coming from the transfer portal. Shedeur is probably on bent knee, hoping to not be on bent knee like he was last year because of his offensive line, allowing him to just get obliterated so many times. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback get hit as hard and as frequently as he did last year. Hopefully an upgrade to the offensive line is going to help him as far as his completion percentage, as far as his stats. We have him ranked as a number 15 quarterback. And I've got my eye on both LaShawnte Wester and Will Shepherd, and I'm going to talk to Doug and BMAC and see what their opinions are here. We have them ranked at the number 33 wide receiver and the number 36 wide receiver, and I'm having a difficult time in deciding which one is the one I want to keep my eye on. Now, we believe that Wester is going to have a better year. If you look back at last year's statistics, Wester clearly was the better receiver. 108 yards, 108 receptions, 1,168 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Whereas Will Shepherd only had 47 receptions, 684 yards, but still had the 8 touchdowns. The problem here is that you had Will Shepherd coming off of a bad Vanderbilt team playing in the SEC, so he had a lot fewer opportunities to have big games because of the competition he was playing against. You have LaShawnte Wester coming out of Florida Atlantic, coming out of FAU in a weaker schedule, weaker competition, being able to put those numbers up. So Doug, BMAC, when you take a guy that put up a little bit less in a tough division and a guy that put up a little bit more in a weaker division, both going to Colorado, which one do you guys lean more towards? Obviously, we know the rankings say 33 and 36, but that's pretty much the same thing as far as our rankings are concerned. If you had to pick one, which one of those two guys would you lean on and why?
So this is a little tough for me in general to pick one because they've also got Hunter, which you don't know what he's going to do. You've got Horn, who looked well when he played last year. I would probably, and this is just my honest opinion, like you're asking for, I would probably go Will Shepherd. He's a bigger body, will probably get more, red zone opportunities, in my opinion, because I believe he's 6'3", where Wester's 5'11" or something like that. But I mean, Wester's route running ability is really good. So it's just a toss-up. I think it's going to come down to who gets the most touchdowns, and I'm going to go with the bigger body in the red zone for me. So
I would also caution, like, what if this happens? Like, I've seen NFL scouts who say Travis Hunter is easily a first-round wide receiver and not as good
at corner
in terms of his play at cornerback. So what if he makes that full transition in this year and becomes wide receiver 1 for Colorado? Because I think if he focused on receiver and played all the snaps, I think he's the guy at that point in terms of possession over the middle in the red zone. Like that's where this is not a stack situation. It's great for you who owns Shador in the home league. Like Phil Steele's got them listed as the number 4 projected passing offense this year. That's one where I roll with Shador, and I'm probably not going to try and stack them, especially if you're thinking about DraftKings or whatever. I'm probably not going to pick any of those wide receivers unless there's like true consistency over time, because I just don't know how it's going to break out.
Yeah, I do think that's a very, very valid point, because Travis Hunter here, I think part of the reason why we have him at right now currently at wide receiver 70 is because not only is there more wide receiver talent there, but because, like you said, you don't really know which side of the ball he's going to be on. I think if he was to say, like you said, he's going to become wide receiver primarily, he's not going to be on the defensive side of the ball, I think you see those rankings for Colorado probably change dramatically as to what the value is. You might see him jump above both of those two wide receivers. Now you also could see a situation where Colorado says we've got far more talent at wide receiver than we have at corner, so maybe we do need to put him at corner, and you still might see an NFL team still pick him as a top wide receiver, even though he's playing on the other side of the ball, just because that's where Colorado has the position of need. Colorado's not caring about where his draft stock is in that respect. They're caring about winning some games right now. So I think if it's the opposite, where you hear that Travis Hunter is going to be put onto defense primarily, then maybe you might see Wester or Shepherd jump up a little bit. You never know.
Changes everything. Yeah. Last year, and it's funny, you can't even get to his wide receiver stats because or in ESPN you can't, because he's listed as a corner. But so I came over to Fox just to look at it. He's 57 catches, 721 yards, 5 receiving touchdowns last year.
Got to remember, he missed a month.
Yeah. And of all of them, that's where we have it projected, but it's just so weird because, like, what position is he going to play? Is he going to still go both sides of the ball? Just have no idea.
Here's the deal. He plays for Deion Sanders. He's going to play as much as he can to get as much screen time as he can, because he wants his boys to be, top 10 picks in the draft. So they're going to want him on the screen as much as possible. So he's still going to play both. There's no way he doesn't play both.
But I mean, the injury plays into that,
but he came back as both after that.
Though. I know. It's hopefully, if I was controlling him in the video game, I'd probably make him rest a little bit and pick one side of the ball. But he's a different cat for sure. He's really good at both. But if he becomes wide receiver 1. I worry a bit about the other guys in terms of their output. But either way, great for Shedeur, great for you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Colorado is probably right now one of those teams that you really have to keep your eye on more than anybody else just because of what we're talking about. And then you look at last year, Doug, you mentioned he was out for a month with the injury. Think about where Colorado's offense was before he got injured. Think about what he came back into. When he came back, you had a month of Shedeur just getting absolutely beaten within an inch of his life, sack after sack after sack. I mean, I've never seen a quarterback not even be able to get into his drop before he was already getting sacked. It was like the offensive line wasn't even there. So he came back to an offense that was completely shell-shocked. So most of his real big impact was before that injury happened. He came back to it. So it was almost like that season was split into thirds. You have a third of the season when he was there and they were hitting on all cylinders, a third of the season when he wasn't there, and a third of the season when he comes back and the offense is just a complete shambles. So to see him get hopefully a full season period, who knows? The sky's the limit for this guy.
Yeah, man. That would be a tough one to pick my favorite stack going into the year. Maybe we should bet on that. But it's one where we could all three legitimately pick a different wide receiver. So tough one.
So that's our top three stacks. But we want to know what you guys think. We want you guys to go up to Discord. We want you guys in the comments on this YouTube video or on your favorite podcast site and let us know another stack, whether it's a quarterback to wide receiver or quarterback to tight end, that you have your eyes on and why you want that to be a stack that people out there in the world know about. We want to know your opinions.
Jackson Dart to Trey Harris is a fun one. I don't own Trey Harris. I wish I did. Maybe I'll try and trade Uncle Joe for him. But I've got Dart, and I've had him since he was a freshman. Did you know in our home league, he was the last pick in the draft when he was a freshman? I got him and just kept him. So Jackson Dart now is looking good. We'll see, but that's a fun stack. Obviously, Nico to Squirrel is a good one. A super fun one to go out and get. But there'll be others.
And let me ask you guys real quick, because you guys have been doing this for so long. Do you have a favorite stack that you remember? In the past?
Just because of this wasn't like a fantasy college fantasy one, but obviously Grossman to Gaffney's one that I grew up watching. This was like end of the Spurrier era. That was a good one. I did think about that question as I was going through here, like what would be my favorite stack. I just thought of that.
What about your fantasy? Did you ever have one that you're like, okay, this is
man, I might need some time to think about it. Not one necessarily comes to mind.
I've been doing it such a shorter amount of time than you guys. I mean, you know mine because it's a stack again. And that doesn't happen very often. So Bo Nix to Troy Franklin, who both got drafted to Denver Broncos. So
yeah, that is rare.
Really fun. Could be
that
really
is
again,
rare.
So.
Rare to have a stack in college that becomes a potential stack in the pros on the same squad. That's very interesting.
Matt, you were talking about Texas State, and so their head coach, I had him as a fantasy quarterback when he was at Tulsa, GJ Kinney, to Damaris Johnson. Who was like their like elite in terms of volume. He got so many touches. However, that stack never like fully realized its potential to me, because I think Damaris got 3 touchdowns in his last season, even though he had so many catches. But that's one that's kind of memorable and relevant to conversation on this show. But yeah, Doug, I have to think about that one.
Me too, man. That's there's some good ones there. Off the top of my head, my brain goes back to normally like quarterback running back combos where you got a good quarterback that's getting a lot of stats and a running back that's also getting one too. But yeah, I'll have to go back and think about that one, man. That's a good question, Doug. You jump in here, you jump in here after a few weeks, you throw a question at us, and you stump us both.
Boom. That's what I do.
All right, so that's been our stacks for the week. BMAC, what do we have coming up as we roll closer and closer into that draft season? We know we talked about next week, whether it's going to be online or offline, we're going to be doing our division picks for our home league. We're going to be talking about hopefully what other people do, what other things do we have on tap for upcoming episodes of the CFB Dynasty podcast?
Yeah, we teased this week as maybe sleeper week. So I've still got to go over that, but that's coming very soon, whether it's next week or a future week. Sleepers are coming up, and we'll have to get together on that.
All right, sounds good. Well, this has been this week's episode of the CFB Dynasty podcast. Doug, we are glad to have you back. Even if this is now a once a month thing, whether it's once a week, we're glad you're able to find a way to sneak off duty for a little bit and get back here.
We'll just have to talk about pay. That's it. It's fine.
Yeah, I have to get back here on the pod.
No, I'm hoping to make it a more consistent thing, at least for the summer. So, and then once school year starts, we'll have to see what I can do.
We'll be back on our Saturday pod at that point, maybe.
Yeah.
The weekly prep for everyone in terms of DFS, doing our DFS battle and going over the weekly rankings. Man, it's
going to be so much fun. I can't wait to do this stuff again.
Can't wait.
Oh, yeah. And if you're out there listening and you have not made the jump to decide to be a subscriber to the CFB Dynasty website, you want to get up there right now, CFBDynasty.com. Become a subscriber to the site. That way we can help you to take your college fantasy football experience to the next level. On behalf of Brian McElfresh and Doug Dynasty, my name is Matt Knowles. We thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.
See y'all.
Thank you for listening to the CFB Dynasty podcast. Help us out by subscribing on YouTube and reviewing us on your podcast network.